Right now, millions of people are experiencing something strange. They're listening to songs from 2016, Drake, Desiigner, Rae Sremmurd, and they're feeling emotions stronger than when those songs first dropped. This isn't nostalgia. This is your brain on a neurochemical time machine. And the science behind it? It's the same mechanism that makes drugs addictive. Welcome back to Beat Theory, where we break down the science behind the sounds. 2026 is experiencing a full-blown 2016 revival. TikTok searches for 2016 surged 450%. Spotify playlists titled 2016 are exploding. Gen Z is recreating bottle flip challenges and mannequin challenges. But here's the question nobody is asking. Why does 2016 music hit different in 2026 than it did in 2016? The answer isn't about culture. It's about chemistry. Before we get to the neuroscience, we need to understand what makes music a uniquely powerful memory trigger compared to other stimuli. Sound travels as pressure waves through the air at 343 meters per second. When these waves hit your eardrum, they're converted into mechanical vibrations, then into electrical signals that travel to your auditory cortex. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike visual or tactile memories that get processed primarily through the thalamus and routed to specific brain regions, music takes a multi-highway approach. A 2014 study by Daniel Levitin at McGill University found that music activates more areas of the brain simultaneously than any other stimulus. We are talking motor cortex for rhythm, prefrontal cortex for structure, amygdala for emotion, hippocampus for memory, and the striatum for reward. This distributed activation pattern is why music can trigger memories from multiple sensory domains at once. You don't just hear one dance. You remember where you were, who you were with, what you were wearing, even what the weather felt like. The physics of sound creates an unusually dense web of neural connections. And when those connections were formed during a specific developmental window, like adolescence, they become nearly permanent. All right, here's where we dive into the real science. Why is your brain chemically wired to love the music you heard between ages 12 and 22? Between 12 and 22, your brain is undergoing rapid neurological development. This is called the critical period for identity formation. Your prefrontal cortex is still forming, your emotional regulation systems are maturing, and your brain is laying down the neural infrastructure for who you're going to be as an adult. During this window, music you connect with doesn't just get remembered, it gets encoded with heightened emotional weight. Here's the mechanism. When you hear a song you love, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in sex, food, and cocaine. But here's the kicker. A landmark 2011 study from McGill University by Rae Sremmurd used PET scans to measure dopamine release during music listening. What they found was groundbreaking. Dopamine isn't just released when the good part of the song hits. It's released in two waves. Wave 1, anticipation, the caudate nucleus, the brain's prediction center, lights up during the build-up. You know the drop is coming. Your brain releases dopamine before the payoff. Wave 2, peak pleasure then, when the drop hits, the nucleus accumbens floods with dopamine. This is the same region activated by drugs, gambling, and falling in love. Now, here's why this matters for 2016 music specifically. If you were between 12 and 22 in 2016, roughly ages 20 to 30 now, your brain was in that critical development window. Every time Panda or Black Beatles dropped, your brain wasn't just enjoying the song. It was wiring itself around that dopamine hit. And those connections don't weaken with age. They get reinforced. A 2022 Oxford University study on nostalgia found that when you re-experience music from your adolescence, your brain doesn't just retrieve the memory. It reactivates the entire reward circuit as if you're rehearing it for the first time. This is called the hippocampal-VTA loop. The hippocampus retrieves the memory. The VTA, ventral tegmental area, floods the system with dopamine, and the connection between memory and reward gets even stronger. In other words, every time you listen to 2016 music in 2026, you're not just remembering the past. You're rewiring your brain to crave it more. Now let's talk about the actual sonic characteristics of 2016 that make it so neurochemically potent. If we break down the hits from 2016, Black Beatles, Panda, Broccoli, there are specific production techniques that define the era. 1. The Metro Boomin snare roll, those rapid snare rolls before the drop? That's pure anticipation engineering. Your caudate nucleus is screaming for resolution. 2. The 808 slide deep, sustained 808 slides tuned to minor keys. This creates what neuroscientists call comfortable melancholy, pleasure mixed with bittersweet emotion, which is chemically more addictive than pure happiness. 3. Minimal melodic elements unlike 2010's EDM or 2020's hyperpop. 2016 production was spacious. Simple piano loops, sparse synths, lots of negative space. Why does this matter neurologically? Because your brain fills in the gaps with your own memories. The simpler the production, the more your hippocampus has to do the work, which strengthens the memory reward loop. 4. The human voice as Hook 2016 was the year ad-libs became hooks. Desiigners RHH, in Panda, Migos Raindrop, Drop Top, 21 Savage Yes Yeah. Our brains are evolutionarily wired to prioritize human voice above all other sounds. Ad-libs trigger mirror neurons. You're not just hearing the sound, you're feeling the emotional state of the artist. This deepens the emotional encoding. If you were a producer trying to recreate this nostalgia effect today, you defocus on anticipation-heavy arrangements sub-bass that sits around 40 to 60 Hz minimal melodic complexity vocal samples as textural elements so we understand the how. But why is this happening now in 2026? The simple answer: emotional recalibration. 2016 was the last year before a cascade of collective trauma. Pre-Trump, pre-COVID, pre-AI saturation, pre-algorithmically optimized everything. Dr. Christine Batcho, a nostalgia researcher at Le Moyne College, calls this compensatory nostalgia. When the present feels overwhelming, the brain retreats to a psychological anchor point, a time that felt simpler, even if it objectively wasn't. But here's the neuroscience twist. Nostalgia isn't escapism. It's resilience. A 2015 study from the University of Southampton found that nostalgic experiences activate the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for emotional regulation and threat response modulation. In other words, when you listen to 2016 music, your brain isn't just remembering the past. It's regulating your response to the present. The dopamine hit from the music gives you a neurochemical buffer against stress. The memory reward loop strengthens your sense of self-continuity. You're reminding your brain, I've survived disorienting times before. I can survive this too. This is why entire generations are synchronizing around the same nostalgic moment. It's collective neurochemical self-soothing. So here's the takeaway. 2016 music doesn't just hit different because of cultural nostalgia. It hits different because, 1. Your brain was in a critical development window, encoding these songs with heightened emotional weight. 2. The production style of 2016 was engineered, intentionally or not, to maximize anticipation and memory consolidation. 3. Your brain is using these songs as a neurochemical anchor to regulate stress in 2026. The next time you find yourself putting on Black Beatles or Panda, you're not being sentimental. You're running a highly sophisticated neurochemical program written 10 years ago. Your teenage brain knew what it was doing. Next episode, we are diving into the emotion code, why sad music makes us feel good, and the neuroscience behind pleasurable pain. If you learn something, hit subscribe. We upload every week. This is Beat Theory. Stay curious.